Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome. So today is the last sermon in our sermon series, March Madness, dealing with the realities of life, right? And confronting that head on and allowing ourselves to process emotions, grief, excitement, joys, our desires, our plans, our hopes, and understand how to process them, how to use them to strengthen us, how to use them to help us understand better God's plan for us. And as we were singing these last songs, right, we see about going through the ocean, right? The two of them were sailing with our Father in the light of grace, and you know all those ups and downs and the curves that hit a boat, you know, the waves splashing against it, being thrown off our original plan, our original destination, but trusting also that God ultimately has a destination for each one of us, that God can help redirect us and recalibrate us so that we can live together with God, we can live together in God's promises. And so today that's really what we're sharing about. You know, this last week there were so many different things. Last Saturday we had this great meeting about community, about how we can build community, how we can help grow ourselves and grow other people, how we can be a light unto this world. And the next day after service, we had this council meeting and we shared this calendar. I don't know if some of you guys saw it as kind of our hopes for the coming year. But you know, we wrote out all our plans and we said, oh, this is what we're going to do, right? But plans are something we make, and sometimes we just have to hope that we can follow through on them. But they also give us a course, a way to redirect our lives when things get off course, right? And then this week also, when our dear sister Doris actually transitioned into the spirit world. And I think for many of us it was a shock, right? It was kind of a surprise. And it took a moment to let that sink in. How do we care for this family? How do we help her transition? But also amidst it all was also a time for reunion of a family that hadn't seen each other in a long time. It was a time also to be reminded about the joys of life and the preciousness of each moment that we share. So amidst all of this, we see God's presence, God's hand guiding us through the storms of life, guiding us through these processes. And really, I was so grateful this week to see just so many people come out and support. We did this great meditation class over at the Bangkok Thai restaurant, and that was really neat. And just so many people, they said it was the most people they ever had in their meditation center, was to come out and honor Doris. And so that was really neat to be a part of. And during it was so beautiful because it gave me time to just reflect. You know, often life hits us and we're just constantly responding, you know, kind of in the spur of the moment. How do I react? How do I, respond to each situation? But in that meditation time, it was a time to process what's been happening in our lives and to think about the energy and the love that we want to give out. So to recalibrate, to refocus ourselves. And of course, yesterday we had the beautiful Songwa ceremony. We had so many people gathered here. We had the idea of doing testimonies, but everybody was enjoying each other. And it was just a beautiful experience, and I felt Doris was so grateful for that experience yesterday. So life does happen, and we have to deal with life, right? Life isn't always just the way we planned it. It's not always our hopes and dreams. Sometimes changes happen. And that's when we allow God into our lives to help guide us through the storm, to be that beacon of light that gives us hope, that gives us purpose, that gives us a direction that we can re-navigate towards. So today, I wanted to share about curveballs, right? The curveballs of life. When we think everything is going right, we think everything is planned out perfectly, and then something comes amiss, right? So I remember when I was a kid, I used to play baseball. I was pretty terrible at it, but I really enjoyed going to baseball. I enjoyed being with my friends, practicing, playing around, messing around. I enjoyed the pizza parties at the end of the year a lot. And I enjoyed getting out there. You know, I always preferred to be out, way out in the outfield where the ball didn't normally venture, and I could stare at the dandelions. You know, there was, when I was young, I got the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, and it's sponsored by Pizza Hut. I don't know if anybody ever saw the original one. And they had this Pizza Hut commercial in the beginning, and he's talking about watching the dandelions. I play right field way out where the dandelions grow. And his whole thing was he didn't really care for baseball. He just liked to be out in the sun and catch those dandelions. I think that was me, kind of a little distracted, not really knowing what was going on. But I enjoyed being out there. And I really liked it early on because you know, with baseball, they kind of grow, they help you develop, they help you grow it step by step. They start with T-ball, you know, where the ball is just standing still and you just got to swing, right? And it's pretty easy. And then they transition to coach pitch. And I was really good at coach pitch. And, you know, the reason why was the coaches, they tried to make you good, right? They made sure that ball came real straight, not too fast, not too slow. You know, they made it real easy for you to hit it. You just swung, and every time you'd hit it, because they were throwing it to your bat. And so I did pretty good when I was little, and I thought I was a good baseball player. But then they switched to kid pitch, and kid pitch was terrifying. Because with kid pitch, they would just find the kid that could throw the hardest. You know, it wasn't about how straight they could throw. It wasn't about how good they were. Just whoever could really throw that ball down fast. And so sometimes, you know, they would strike you out. But oftentimes, more often than not, you'd get hit. And you'd get a free base. So at least I took one for the team, right? So I was grateful for that. But it was really scary because you really never knew where it was going to go. And I think I played a year or two of kid pitch, and then I gave up my glove for good. But you know, the thing with baseball is, you know, as long as it's coming straight down the line, you know, it's not so hard to hit the ball, to get on base, to hit something. But then comes the curveball. You know, as pitchers start to learn more than just throwing it hard, they start learning different ways to throw the ball. And the curveball is really hard because you're sitting there and you position yourself, you're all ready to hit the ball, you're in the right position. And you even watch the ball come off, and you can see it coming straight. And you're going, okay, I got this. I see where it's coming. It's going to wind up here. And you start swinging. But in the middle of your swing, suddenly the ball drops. And you go, whoa, whoa. And you're swinging, and you're just kind of standing there dumbfounded. And everybody's looking at you like, what did you do? Why did you throw? And it just makes you kind of feel humiliated, actually. You know, curveballs are really embarrassing because you're swinging with all your might and you're really seeing it. You know, everything's lined up, everything's perfect. My swing is on par this time. It's going to hit it, and then boom, you're left there just spinning in circles and wondering what just happened. Now in life we often have this as well, right? These curveball moments where we've lined up everything in life. We've got it all planned out. We've got it figured out. Things are finally working out for us. Our plans are finally following through. And the steps that we, thought we were going to follow, they're actually all working out. And we're kind of amazed. Like, oh my gosh, like everything's actually working this time. And there's a smile on our face and we're real excited. And then some call comes in, right? And it just completely throws off your plans. We've often had this where we finally have a little money saved up, we've got our plans set, and Lena's got her list of the things we're about to buy, and then some shocking bill comes in, or something that we thought was paid wasn't paid, and someone calls us up. And we have this problem with mobile water supply, and we keep setting up auto pay, and it keeps coming back, and they call us up a couple weeks later and say, oh, you haven't paid. We said, no, we set up your auto pay 3 times now. And we found out one time, actually, we have an out-of-state number still. We don't have a 251 number. And they don't call out-of-state numbers if you haven't paid your water bill. So one day we came home and our water was turned off. And we go, what's going on? We've been paying this bill, right? And we called up and they go, oh yeah, and And Lena said, why didn't you call us, right? Why didn't you send us a notification? They said, oh, well, you have an out-of-state number, so we didn't imagine anyone's there. You don't have anybody that moved in from out of state? Like, what's going on here? Anyways, true story, really happened. But my neighbor was like, oh, I got a tool, I'll turn it back on for you. So he's my really cool neighbor, the one I'm telling you about. He fixes everything for us. So that worked out, right? We were really bummed and we were frustrated that morning, but then he fixed it and we got back on track. We called up the water company, everything straightened out. I think we're on schedule now. But it happened twice. Well, they didn't turn it off the second time, but they sent us a letter, oh, you haven't paid your bill. We said, no, we called in again. We reset that. Things happen in life, right? We think we've got everything clear. We think we've got our paperwork sorted out. We think we've got relationships working out, right? And then some word is communicated, some message is communicated, miscommunicated, misunderstood, and it breaks apart the trust. It breaks apart a relationship. We're sitting there wondering, what just happened? What just happened in my life? How am I going to get back on track? Everything was clear. Everything was planned out. And sometimes we feel humiliated. We feel dumbfounded. We feel embarrassed when things don't go right. When we thought everything was working out and it doesn't work out, we can feel ashamed, right? We can feel like, wow, I'm not good enough. I didn't plan this out. Maybe I wasn't smart enough. Maybe my plan wasn't really that good. Maybe I'm not worthy of a good relationship. Maybe I'm not, ready yet for that job. And we start questioning ourselves. We start doubting ourselves. But we have to also accept that curveballs happen in life. That there are human beings and we're all flawed. And so interactions happen, mistakes happen. There's miscommunication, misunderstandings. And we can get back on track. We can get back on the path if we stay true to our original goal, if we stay true to our relationship with God and seeking God and seeking God's wisdom, seeking God's path for our life. So some of the early disciples had this issue, and so there was some counsel about how to figure out life's distractions, life's curveballs. So in 1 Peter it says, humble yourselves therefore under God's mighty hand, that he may lift you up in due time. Cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you. So we're going through our life, right, and we make our plans, right, and we think we have it all figured out. But we also have to understand that God also has a plan for us. God has a hope and a desire for us. And that even when our plans fall apart, we can come back to God and say, God, what is it that you want for my life? What is the direction you have planned for my life? What hopes and intentions? Maybe I was going in a direction and God was like, no, you don't want to go that way. Or maybe things just happen, right? Circumstances just happen and things fell apart. But when we come to God humbly and we ask God, come into my life, give me direction, give me your purpose, give me your hope. And we cast our anxiety, our fears, our doubts on God. God has an avenue to come into us. And ultimately, God is our parent, right? Just as Linda was sharing earlier. God is our parent that loves us deeply, that cares for us, and wants things to work out. But also, God knows we're going through a growing period. We're children to God, right? God's been here for infinity years, and we've been here for decades, right? And God understands that we're not always going to get it right the first time, that we're going to make mistakes. But God cares for us. God loves us, and God wants to see us fulfilled. God gives us that path, that avenue to get back on our feet. Also, it says, be alert and sober of mind. So many times, right, we're going through situations, we get hit, and we kind of get frantic. Our emotions get the best of us, and we get frantic, and we get crazy, and we start reacting in unclear ways. And so it says, be clear, be sober in your mind, right? Be calm. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. Resist him, standing firm in the faith, because you know that family of believers throughout the world is undergoing the same kind of suffering. When we stumble, when we fall, there is the temptation to let those fears and those doubts about ourselves, about our ability, consume us, devour us, and make us accept that we're just not good enough. We're just not worth it. We're just not, worthy of a healthy relationship. No one can really love me. And we allow those feelings, those fears, those doubts to devour us. And we throw away, we squander the treasures that God has placed for our lives, the hopes and dreams that God wanted to give in our lives. And so be careful, right? When you are going through that curveball situation, when you're standing there at the base and wondering what just happened to you, take a moment to breathe. Don't just react, don't just respond in that moment, but allow yourself to see things from a bigger perspective and resist that temptation to allow the fears and the doubts and the shame to tell you you can't go forward, that you shouldn't keep moving forward, that you should just give up on your dreams. That's the hope, but many people around the world are going through their own difficulties. People everywhere in this room have their own challenges, right? We look around and we say, oh, that person's so successful and I'm just me, right? But we don't know what kind of difficulties, challenges other people are overcoming at the same time in their lives. So take heart that we're in this together, that we're here together, and that God cares for us and wants us to be successful. And the grace, the God of all grace, who called you to this eternal glory in Christ, after you have suffered a little while, will himself restore you and make you strong, firm, and steadfast. To him be the power forever and ever. Amen. Ultimately, God is a God of grace. God is a God of love. God wants us to be successful. And if we can remain faithful, even in the times of uncertainty, even when we don't know where our next step will land, even when we don't know the next direction that we need to take, the next path that we need to walk, even when we're not sure, remain faithful, believing that God will reset you on your course. God will restore you. God will reclaim you and help you find that path again. So, for all of us, right, we have these situations, right, where we're in doubt, where we're stumbling, where we're falling, right? And we go through these emotions and we start getting in our head, right? We get in our head and we start attacking ourselves, accusing ourselves. The greatest enemy normally of our greatness, of our achievement, is our own selves, right? Our own lack of faith in the person that God created us to be. We don't realize how great God designed us to be. We don't realize how much God loves us. We don't realize how valuable we are, and we sit there and we criticize ourselves. We criticize our steps. We criticize our actions. We go in this cycle, and almost it becomes these self-fulfilling prophecies where we tell ourselves we're not good enough, and so we don't get up the next morning. We don't try the next day. And you know what happens when you don't try? You don't succeed. Right? And so we get stuck in ourselves. So we need to have a method, some steps to take when we hit those inevitable curveballs in life, when we are stuck there, wondering what just happened in life and how we can move forward. We got to have some process of how to deal with that. So a few things I wanted to share. This little ball player that was me 20 years ago. Don't throw the bat. And when you are out there playing ball, especially it can be a really slow game. It can drive you crazy, and this is your one change, right? You get 3 strikes and you're out. And then you got to sit on that bench again. And sometimes the temptation of frustration in life, when we make a mistake, when we slip up, we just want to respond in anger, give up, throw that bat, right? That's honestly most of our first response, is to lash out, to find out who's responsible, who made the problem. My kids have been terrible recently about trying to figure out who's to blame for letting the cat in the house or something like that. And they just go crazy at each other. No, it's your fault. No, it's your fault. And we have this temptation to just explode on other people. Some mistake happens, something that's not supposed to happen happens. And we just respond with anger, with frustration. And sometimes we choose to step out of the game. For many people, right, after being rejected a number of times in relationships, having relationships fall apart, or not getting the promotion a few times in a row, or not being able to pay bills. Some people just decide to give up. It's easier many times to give up, to step out, right? To not put your heart in it again, to not risk the chance of being burnt, the chance of being attacked, the chance of failing. Sometimes it can be easier to resort back to a simpler life, a safe life. Something that has no risk. But in life, the person that never swings the bat, the person that never takes a shot, they're going to miss 100%, right? They're never going to have the opportunity to grow. They're never going to have the opportunity to see what could have been. And many people want to resist living a full life. Right? They want to just go the safest route. They don't want that fear. They don't want that anxiety anymore. And so instead of living life, we're just persevering. Going through another week, watching the days go by, the same as the day before, because that's safe. No new relationships because someone might reject us. No risk at work because it might fall apart again. No new career path. Nothing new in life because that's a safe life. But the greatest regret most people have at the end of life isn't what they did and failed at, but it's what they didn't even try to do. People regret that. I didn't even try and make that relationship work. I didn't even call that person. I didn't even try and get that job. And I just settled. So avoid throwing the bat. Get up, try again. Keep pursuing. Keep striving for something better. Keep trying, keep learning, keep growing. The great thing about baseball is there's like 70 games in a season. So if you mess up once or twice, right, you got all those other times to try again, to make another attempt, to make one more effort. Keep trying, keep in the game, keep working on what's happening in life, what's not working in life. Keep trying to consider that and work on how you can do better the next time. The next is act, don't react. I was going to change this slide, but take a step back. Right? When you're playing ball, you can actually take a step back. And then you can think about what just happened. What just happened in life? Not just get frustrated and try again, swing harder next time. I have a lot more experience with golf, and I'm also not very good at it. But I played with my grandpa all the time. I played with my dad all the time. It's our Father's Day thing. And the thing I've learned about golf is 90% of it's in your head. When you swing and you slice, right, it gets really frustrating. And if you don't take a breath, if you don't take a step back and think about it, you're going to go in there and hit the next ball even worse. And then it piles up and you get angry and angrier. I have a brother that can't play because he gets so mad and he starts cursing, clubs are flying, and my dad doesn't need him playing anymore. So he drives the golf cart. But in golf, then I realized too, though, if you take that deep breath, I messed up one shot, you take a step back, you think about it, you calm yourself, you get your head back in the game, and try again. I realized, I could control my ability to hit that ball again. Most of the time it wasn't hitting it harder, but it was hitting it more relaxed and being clear about what I was going to do. So in life, when we're hit with a curveball, sometimes we just want to push through it. We just want to get back in there and fight through it. Maybe someone says something and we misunderstood them, or they misunderstood us and they accuse us. And instead of cooling our head and taking a step back, we jump right back at there, right? And we come with the perfect comeback. We attack them. We push them down, right? We try and win by responding, by reacting louder, by reacting stronger the next time. But oftentimes that doesn't fix the situation. That doesn't put us back on our path. That doesn't help us readjust ourselves. We need to take a step back and look at the bigger picture. What is it I'm in this game for? What are we striving to achieve in life? What was my goal in the first place? We take a step back, we breathe, we settle ourselves, we get ourselves back in the game, and then we try again. You know, in baseball, they have this big thing, right, where they try and mess with the pitcher too, right? And you'll see so much of it has to do with being clear in your head, right? You throw a bad ball and they start chanting at you and saying the pitcher's a belly itcher, which I don't know why it's so embarrassing. But it was a good chant that we used to throw out. And you'd throw off, you'd psych them out. They'd get out of their head, they'd get frustrated, and they'd just react, right? And when they're just reacting, when they're just throwing, they don't do a very good job anymore. So in life, we have to take that step back to not just let those circumstances overwhelm us and just jump at it and attack again, but take a step back, breathe, recalibrate, readjust, look again, where am I trying to go? What is my goal? What is the end goal? This way didn't work out. This method wasn't the right one. I've got to try it a different way. And then we can step back in and try again. But try it with a new heart. Try it with a new understanding of your life, of your circumstances, of the people in your life. Sometimes we get really reliant on our plan, right? We get everybody lined up. We get the people lined up. We get the projects lined up. But then someone fails in what they're supposed to do, right? Something falls through. The truth about life is as much as we plan life, as much as we work with people and think we're on the same page, people are people. Everybody has their own aims, their own goals, their own hopes. And sometimes a priority for them is different than a priority for us. Sometimes our plan that we thought was so great isn't so great for another person, for another circumstance. So we have to understand that our plans are going to fall through sometimes. Sometimes life just isn't going to work out. A relationship won't work out. You know, a hope, a dream, a desire, that path isn't going to work out. And we take that step back. We breathe and we say, okay, I still have this end goal. I want to have this great family. I want to have some success in my career. I want something meaningful. But I realized that wasn't the path to it. I'm going to take a step back, and when I breathe, I can see, oh, there's other paths to still attain my goal. I can approach the ball differently next time. So take that time to step back, to breathe, and act. Don't just react to life. And then one of the great things in a game is you have a coach. Right? For most of us in life, we don't have a coach. We don't really have someone that can always see our whole picture, right? Some of us have our parents and they're good at it. Sometimes we have a partner that's good at looking at our life. But in sports, right, you have this coach that's clearly removed from the game. They're not in there having to, hit the balls. They're not there trying to pitch. They're just observing the whole playing field. They can see all the players. They can see how they're interacting. They can see their strengths and weaknesses. They can see when someone's having an off day. They can see when we have to change situations. And so when you're the player, right, you can go to your coach. And you can say, hey, coach, I don't know what just happened. What did I do? Did you see something? Sometimes the coach sees you weren't standing the right way. You weren't looking the right way. Maybe they can see that, the pitcher's going this way right now. And, recalibrate yourself, readjust yourself. So you go to your coach. You rely on your coach in sports to guide you, to put you back on the path, to see that bigger picture and help the team work towards the victory. So in life, we also need to go to our coach. In life, our coach is God. God is the one that sees the whole playing field. God is the one that sees all the players. God sees what you're trying to do. He sees what your friend's trying to do. He sees what your partner's trying to do. He sees what your coworkers are trying to do. He sees all the pieces working together. And God has some idea of how they can all work together harmoniously. God has some vision of how we can take a step to adjust our life to get that dream that we've always hoped for, that hope and desire that's planted in our heart by God Himself. Right? God sees that vision. And so we need to take time out of our day to stop and talk with the coach. Say, God, what am I doing wrong? I'm going to cast my anxieties. I'm going to cast my doubts on you. I know you care for me. I know that you have a plan for us. I know that you want us all to be victorious. You're not looking at winners and losers. You want us all to be winners. Right? So God, what do you want me to do right now? I'm going to humble myself. I'm going to talk to you. I'm going to speak with you. And I'm going to take your advice, your intuition to heart. I'm going to take your ideas, your hopes, your dreams. I'm going to plant that in my heart. And so take that time to express to God, these are my frustrations. This was my hope. This was my goal. And these are the things that fell apart, God. I've just been hit with a curveball, and I'm standing here embarrassed. I'm standing here not knowing what my next step should be. God, what do you think I should do? Pitch your heart to God. Open up and ask God to show you the way. And through that process, right, we need to trust in God. We need to trust that God has a direction for us. So when we express our heart to God, when we talk to God, we also need to do something called listening to God. Right? It's easy to tell God all the things we want, all the things God needs to do, all the people God needs to change. Because most of the time it's everyone else, right, that needs to change. And we tell God this. We express this all to God. And then sometimes we just say it all, and then we just go back off, and we say, okay, I told God what I need to do. Now I'm doing the will of God, right? I'm going to do it all right. And we just go out and we act. But an important thing is to take time to quiet ourselves as well. To say, God, this is how I see it. This is how I feel. This is my rejection. This is my fears. This is my doubts. This is my hopes. This is my dreams. Now, what do you have to say? And we calm ourselves. We quiet ourselves. Such an important part of prayer. We often forget about it. We think we have to have the right words to express to God, the right vocabulary, make real theological sounding terms, and make these really grand gestures. We have these ideas of how we should pray, but one of the most important and most overlooked parts is the listening side. To quiet our hearts, to let God speak into us, and to say, this is what my hopes are for you, my child. This is my desire for you, my son. Maybe you need to seek forgiveness. I know you just told me about all the bad things they did. Maybe you need to go and ask for forgiveness. Maybe you made a mistake. Or maybe you need to step away from that relationship right now because it's not good for you. God has something He wants to share with you. God has some vision He wants to share with you. God understands what you're going through. But God also needs us to be receptive to His input. It doesn't do much good for a coach to use all their signs and, their hand signs and codes if we're not understanding it, if we're not receiving it. So we need to be receptive and listen to God. And remember, God's promises are always true. God doesn't make promises that He doesn't intend to keep. God has a purpose, a plan for you. When God said to Abraham, I'm going to multiply you like the grains of the sand on the earth, like the stars. You're going to have so many descendants. God made that promise. And Abraham's thinking, well, you're crazy because my wife's soul. Actually, Sarah laughs at God when He says it, right? Isaac means laughter, right? It's this like joke. Ha, God, good one. But God made that promise and God made it come true. It's not always the way we thought. It's not always through our plans. It's not always through our intentions. It's not always the way we would have done it. But if God has committed a dream in your heart, a hope, a desire for a good relationship, for a marriage, for family, for a career, for some meaningful way to impact the world, if God has placed that in your heart, God will help you make that come true. Believe in God's promises and remind yourselves that God sees you as His child that He loves so much. God will not let you go. God will not let you down. Keep your eyes on the higher truths of life. Keep your heart set on that end goal. Keep your vision on that light post in the distance, right? The waves and the shoreline may look all crazy. It might not look correct to you. Your maps may not seem to be lining up straight, but that light post in the distance is true. God's end goal, His end desire for you is true. And if we stay faithful, if we stay steadfast, if we stay honest in our relationship with God, honest with ourselves, honest with the steps we might have messed up with, but also honest with the things that were out of our control. And trust that God doesn't make mistakes when He makes us. God made you beautifully. God made you for a purpose. God made you with a design, a hope, a desire in mind. And God will make that come true. If we keep our hearts connected with God, if we allow ourselves to recalibrate, to re-navigate when things go out of our control and our desires. God's will be done. And as Reverend Mood many times said, where there is a will, there is a way. Especially if it is the will of God. So what God has planned will come true. It might have to be dual prophecies. There might be multiple ways for you to get there. There might be something that didn't work out, and then God says, hey, you're still faithful. You're still true to me. I've still got a plan for you. I'll give you someone else. I'll give you another situation. I'll give you another opportunity. Trust that God's will be done in your life and in the lives of the people around you. Finally, I wanted to share with you a story about the greatest ball player that ever lived. Not Babe Ruth. But this was another person. It's an old song about a little boy. The boy goes out to the baseball field with his bat and his ball. And the boy gets up there and he's narrating this whole scene of the crowd going wild. Everybody's cheering him on. He's out in that field alone, but he's imagining this whole stadium full of his fans saying, oh, you're the greatest, you know. And the boy stands up and he says, I am the greatest player of all time. And he sings this song to himself. And then he takes his ball and he says, you know, the ball goes up and the ball comes down. He swings his bat all the way around. That's strike one. And he misses, right? And he picks that ball back up and he sings this song again. I am the greatest player of all time. And the ball goes up and the ball comes down. He swings again. Well, that's strike two. He picks up that ball again and he goes, I'm the greatest player of all time. And he swings again and he misses. That's strike three. And it says, I am the greatest player of all time. But even I didn't know I could pitch that good. Yeah. So God might have a different direction for your life. God might have a different path for you than you thought. Maybe you are the pitcher in your ball game. Maybe you have a different role that you haven't explored yet. But amidst all the curveballs, amidst all the mistakes that happen in life, believe that if you keep trying, if you keep persevering, if you keep your faith in God, who loves you so much, that sees the depths of your heart and knows your desires, knows your hopes and dreams, trust in God, trust in God's faithfulness. And one day you can be the greatest ball player of your own life. Let us pray. Our beloved Heavenly Parent, we are so grateful to be in your presence this morning. God, in this community, so many different things happened in this past week. Relationships are reignited. We're seeing people we haven't seen in a long time. God, we lost someone that we care so deeply about. God, we've gone through all these different emotions and we've gone through this roller coaster and we're seeking you at this time, God. We know that you have a hope and a desire for all of our lives. We know that you have a plan and a purpose for this world. God, in the beginning you said, it is very good when you saw your son and daughter born. And God, I know that you say that every time another child is born on earth. God, you see us as very good. You see us full of potential, full of hope. God, but you also know that this world doesn't always cooperate, that we need to be responsible for our own actions and responsible for our own hopes and dreams. And then you are giving us ownership over our lives. God, we want to trust in you this week. We want to put our faith in you, put our hope in you. God, I still see this world as a world that can be perfected, a world that can be filled with your love. God, a world where there can be no more suffering, no more pain, no more wars. God, it's a hope of all of us. Every child is born in this world praying for peace, hoping that love can overcome. God, let us believe in that dream today. Let us keep our hearts set on that end goal and play our own part in this big field of life, God, that we can play our own part in creating peace, harmony, and love in every relationship that we have. God, forgive us for our trespasses. Forgive us for our mistakes. Forgive us for our shortcomings. And allow us to give that same grace to our brothers and sisters. To keep believing and trusting in one another. To keep working towards reconciliation and love. God, we thank you for each brother and sister here. We pray your blessing can be on them this week. That your heart can overwhelm them. That your plans for them can be made clear, God, and that we can all experience your love this week. God, be with our brothers and sisters that aren't here with us today. Send them your love. Send them your love. God, we thank you for our experience here this morning. We thank you for your words. And we offer this Sunday to you in all of our names, in your holy name. Amen and on to you.